Here's a little update on the tow rig build. I finally got the suspension mounted. Basically, there's two bolts are going to hold on the bed. Forget how it comes off now. Oh, it hinges upward. You got to take out the cab first. The cab actually slides forward, comes off. And then the bed just hinges up, goes in these little tabs. That's pretty cool. Take the cabin bed off. You can see how I got the suspension squeezed in here. Very short wheelbase. I think it may even be shorter than the Jeep I built. So I had to put the shocks through the actual stock frame. Piece of angle iron to mount the shock towers. In the rear, got a little more creative. I didn't want any holes in the bed. I wanted it to look like a truck, especially since there's going to be winches back there. So I kind of copied the Pathfinder style shock mounts. Just made some tabs onto the TLT axles. Just made some L brackets to mount the shocks lower. Just enough to get the suspension in there. I should have showed you the travel with the body on, but fits very nicely. Let me show you that actually. So to put the cab back on, you put these tabs in here. Like a bit left-handed. And then you just, there's a couple of little holes in the front somewhere. There you go, and it pops on and the bumper goes on, and then there's holes in the bumper that you put rivets in that hold the cab on and the bumper. And the back is held on by those tabs. So I think I'm going to replace those tabs with magnets or something and just have the body hinge up so I'll have a place to put the battery and electronics. And now you can see the travel. There's the up travel. So it's got a nice suspension. I think it's going to clear it quite nicely. Got little wideners on the front. I may take those out. That stock is still rear height, but the back is the same thing. It clears quite nicely. You can see my I'll stop for a second. This is my complex transmission mount. Started off as two L brackets with the little axle cross member, but I could never get this to work in any of my builds, so I just use it as a template to build something else. So the tranny's moved over all the way to one side to get the drive shaft centered. So I start off with a 3-inch piece of angle iron on either side. That's going to kind of have the straddle in the middle. I bolted it all up, kind of off to one side actually. And then I decided it was just too irregular shape to bolt to the aluminum, so I just put a piece of aluminum across, then I ended up welding the aluminum to the L. That will get rid of 4 bolts. I try to minimize bolts, so all my suspension is mounted. I got the lower links of the 4 links connected to the cross member, and the upper links going into the frame. So I only really have 4 bolts holding the transmission in. The transmission, it's going to be like a little Axial, I think it's AX10 or something it's called. SCX10, the old tranny I bought years ago, back when Axial only had one vehicle. Now they got a whole bunch of vehicles. So that goes all the way over to one side. I think like that. Try to get it all over to one side like how I'm at. And you can see the drive shaft is too long. So I'll just shorten that. But that's why I had to put a little hole in the bed. The clearance, the spur gear. I think the tranny is flat. But I want to put a winch and everything in this place for the bed. But I think that's it. This stage is done. I just need to take it apart and clean up all the links and use better hardware and whatnot. I had to use button heads up here to give room for the bed to sit down flush. Took me a while to figure out how to do this, but it's done. Got a rolling chassis now, using a stock Tonka frame. and just a couple of pieces of aluminum. 3 on the tranny, 1 on the rear, and 1 on the front. Now we can move on to I guess mounting the bed and cab with the bolts. Well, I guess the bed is pretty much done. Just put 2 bolts in there. Try to figure out a way to hinge the front so it's just hinging instead of rivets holding it on, or bolts. Thanks.